networks around the world who've had these big shows. Why were they gonna let Netflix walk in and take their business, and you've done that now, 180 countries, so I would say your move into international would also be game changing.
Yeah, thanks. I think, you know, it was funny back then, there was always seemed something a little odd about the idea that the US population was so small relative to the world, and almost all movies and TV watching was from America. And so that was the kind of going in thesis, which is why is that the case? Are people that different around the world? Just the distribution model kind of dictated what people got to watch. So, by going in and being able to make programming available to people that they never had available to them before, either from America or to America, was pretty novel. And interesting that we, in the early days, our first international launch was Latin America, which hardly any company launches Latin America first because it's really hard. But it was the one place where you can get the most countries for the same license fee. So that's why we went there first. And then we learned quickly that the programming that works in Brazil is of no consequence to people in Mexico. So while it was cheap, it wasn't that interesting. So that we were able to go in, we spent 2 days in Miami meeting the heads of all of the networks from all throughout Latin America. And they were all great and productive, and we got licensed, catalog from each of them, and it was really great. The very last meeting of the day was from Globo in Brazil. And Globo in Brazil is like the dominant media player in Brazil. And it's a family business. They've always, had the home market to themselves. And everyone else brought their whole teams who were very, attentive and engaged. They sent one guy who sat, I think, across from us in the room with his arms, crossed. And we went through our whole pitch, and he said, "Good luck." And that's the only company to date that has still not ever sold us an original piece of local content for the local market, which put us in a position to produce aggressively in Brazil, which is, and it's now our second biggest country for Netflix.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe.
But by the way, and they're good guys. They're a great partnership with Globo. And we've licensed their content for other countries, but they still won't license content for us in Brazil. And it's super intimidating when the first time over there, I stayed in the hotel across the street from their headquarters, and they had like nonstop helicopters going in and out and in and out. And wow, this is a big company. At the time, we were pretty small, so.
Yeah, the traffic in San Paulo?
Yeah, Sao Paulo,
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
It took you 2 hours to
Yeah.
get to your hotel, to their office.
But in old school, these guys did everything. They trained their talent, their actors. They would learn how to do their craft on the lot. They made the breakaway glass on the lot. I mean, they literally did everything, soup to nuts, in producing their shows and films. So it was a really interesting take on it. So.
Yeah, and you said it worked both ways. Maybe tell us an anecdote about a show you made locally, or a show you took locally and brought to the U.S. that was particularly successful.
Well, early on, our very first one we did internationally was a show called Club de Cuervos from Mexico. And at the time, people talk famously about creative freedom at Netflix. The truth of it is, most of it was a lot of creative freedom because I didn't have any people. So I couldn't interfere with you. I didn't have anyone to do it. And in the case of Club de Cuervos, it was based on, there was a film, an independent film, that had come out that year and been very successful at the box office. And this show was kind of a spin-off of that film. And we treated it like an indie movie. We just gave them the money and said and they sent us scripts, and we had to have them translated because no one on the team spoke Spanish. And they basically just really trusted in the filmmaker that he created. It's a world he created, and he knew better than we did. So we treated it like we gave the budget, and he brought us into finished season, which gave us the ability to do all at once releasing of it. And it was not that much different than indie film releasing back then. But it was mostly very specifically for Mexico. So it didn't really, it was so specifically local that a lot of the slang, people didn't understand in other Spanish-speaking countries even. Even Spanish-speaking US didn't recognize some of that. It was a good life lesson for us too, which was that the more authentically local it was, the more it would play at home. And that if you try to make something global, it's inauthentic to everybody. So that was that one. But then we had this, kind of the larger international success was Money Heist, or Club La Casa de Papel. And this was one where the local Spanish network was producing the show. We came in and partnered with them and took international rights for the show. And in the first season, the show was a big hit for us all over the world, and did not work very well for the local Spanish network. So we then bought out the show from them, to produce First Window in Spain and for the world, and it became a big hit for everyone around the world.
Including what, Antenna Trays, or was it Telcinco, or for the local broadcaster as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
By the second.
In the second, they would take Second Window in the spin after that, yeah.
Yeah, I wanna get back to the all at once and the binge viewing, but I also, while we went through the previous game-changing things that you've
And
done.
but leading up to that, what you asked about the other, anecdotally, to today, Squid Game, which you saw at the end of the trailer, we're in the production on season 2 right now, from Korea, is the #1 most watched show on Netflix in the world. So that was including in the US, and it's totally global. It's the only thing we've ever produced that is really global. Plays just as well in every single country in the world.
What does that tell you about human nature?
I'll ponder that one.
We're all the same, right?
Yeah.
So we've been through the past game-changing innovations. Tell us what's next. What are the innovations that you think we're gonna see from here on?
Well, surprisingly, as much as we've been in the television business for this long, that we do this very novel thing called live TV, which has basically been going on since the beginning of television, and we just entered it. So we basically our business is completely counter-positioned to linear television. So it's on demand was always one of the core propositions of what we do, and I do think that it leaves out a significant segment of television viewing, which is live sports, certainly, but also things like competition shows and results-oriented shows that people want to experience at the same time. So our very first live event we did last year, which was Chris Rock, Selective Outrage, and it was the kind of perfect thing that we're trying to do, which is do things live that are actually better live than they would be not live. And in the case of Selective Outrage, people have been waiting for a year to hear Chris Rock's response to the Oscar slap, and he very wisely kept it quiet. He didn't go on social media, didn't do interviews talking about it, and he worked for a year touring that act that we saw. And that last joke, when he was talking about the Oscar slap, he had not performed it before ever. And so the first time he ever performed it was on a live, show in front of millions of people. And I think there was enough pent up desire to see it. If you talk to people that weekend, they're like, oh, I gotta get home by 8 o'clock to watch this thing, which is a very not Netflix thing. So this year we'll roll out a lot more live events. This weekend we have a live tennis match with Nadal and Alcaraz from Vegas. We did a live golf event in Vegas recently. And then we just did a very large deal to do the WWE every week starting 2025. It'll be live, yeah. So for us, it's like it's a new kind of piece of which is about 25-30% of TV watching is live programming in that way, including sports. So we're doing that. We've also branched out into games, and I think that for us, this value proposition of adding more and more value to our membership. So when people join Netflix, if we want to make your favorite TV show, we want to make your favorite film, and we also want to make the game you love to play. And it's been fairly new for us since we're about a year and a half into it. And probably most significantly, we did a distribution deal to relaunch Grand Theft Auto on our platform, so it's included in your subscription. And that's been a really exciting launch, and people are excited about it.
Right. I promise we'll get back to what you call it all at once, but the idea of binge viewing, making the whole stack of shows available at the same time, seems like such a simple idea. Why didn't anybody else think of it?
They kind of did. When we started licensing shows after your second window, basically season after. So after the whole season ran, there'd be a little gap, and then they'd come on Netflix. And we always licensed the whole season because it was available. And we actually at the beginning, it was kind of accidental. So we would license the show, they'd give us all 13 episodes, we put all 13 episodes up, and people started watching. We noticed how people were watching, which was all at once. And mostly some people watched 3, 4, but nobody watched 1. We didn't wait until next week to watch the next one. So we were kind of following, the consumers, and we wanted to be we want to give you what you're trying to get to. And for us, it was, back to that counter positioning, all at once was the ultimate counter position against, watch one episode a week. No commercials was another one, which I think probably kept us out of advertising for too long. This idea of saying, we're just going to be different. And in that case, back in the old DVD days, no was our counter position. And this one, it was no advertising and all you can eat and watch them all at once if you want. And so when we got into this and we started getting more and more able to license more and more popular shows, it was about the same time the cable operators were offering catch-up TV on the cable. So if you watch Breaking Bad, the episode would be there on demand and they'd add to it and add to it and add to it. And when we started licensing, I said, look, if we're gonna buy this right, I wanna own that right. So we went and made our offers contingent on them limiting the number of episodes they could put on demand after they aired for free on cable. So basically it was, and we negotiated, I don't know where the number actually even came from, 5 episodes. I don't know why not 6, why not 3, but basically it was 5, a rolling 5 is what became the standard. So that at the 6th week of the show, the first episode went away. And the 7th week, the second one went away. So the only place you could actually see all at once would be on Netflix. And it had the unintended consequence of making catch-up TV on cable just not work, because it was incomplete. We had Breaking Bad and Walking Dead and Mad Men, which were, at the time, were very, very popular shows. So catch-up TV worked for everything except for the most popular things on TV.
Okay, this is a business school, so, I mean, the Netflix culture, okay. Let's talk about some examples of culture came into play for you and your team. A couple of years ago, you missed subscriber numbers. And we could argue that you missed them because you got ahead of yourself during COVID, but you missed numbers, and over, I think, 2 quarters, your stock dropped 70%.
Yeah.
Lost, what, $150, $200 billion worth of value.
Yeah.
Most companies don't recover from that.
Yeah.
You've recovered almost all